If you've ever stood in front of a crowded bar, watching the bartender wrestle with a tiny undersized ice tray while your guests sip lukewarm drinks, you know the feeling of wasting money on a Nicetohave appliance that never really delivers what you need. You're probably wondering if that extra-large ice machine on the showroom floor is actually worth the space it will take in your kitchen or commercial area, or if it will just sit there, making a lot of noise and barely filling the glass. In short, you don't want to buy the wrong thing and end up with a pricey paperweight. Link is in the description if you want to check the product details on Amazon. I've spent the last couple of weeks digging through the specs, watching a few video demos, and reading through the handful of buyer comments that actually exist for the Hoshizaki IM50 BAAQ Sphere Cuba. While there aren't dozens of glowing testimonials, the 4.2-star rating from almost 1,000 reviewers tells me that most people are happy enough to give it a solid thumbs up, but there are still some realistic concerns that show up repeatedly. Let's walk through what those concerns look like in a real kitchen, and see if this unit fits the kind of service you're planning. First off, the biggest thing people ask about is output. This machine claims to produce up to 50 pounds of ice in a 24-hour period when the ambient temperature sits comfortably at 70 F. In practical terms, that translates to roughly 600 cubes a day, enough to keep a moderate bar or a busy family kitchen well stocked. I ran a quick mental test. If you're serving a small restaurant with an average of 100 drinks a night, each needing a single cube, you'd be well within the limits even if you double the demand for a weekend rush. However, if you run a high-volume venue that needs a constant stream of ice for cocktails, sushi bars, or large-scale catering, you may start feeling the ceiling of that 50 pounds claim. Some users have mentioned that it takes about an hour for the machine to fill its built-in 36-pound storage bin, so you need to plan for that lag time before the first round of drinks can be served. Space is another hidden trade-off. The unit measures 2,434 inches wide, which is relatively compact for a commercial-grade ice maker, but you still need a dedicated spot with enough clearance for ventilation. Because it's air-cooled and has a self-contained condenser, you don't have to worry about a separate water line or exhaust ducts, but you do need to keep a clear path around the sides for heat to escape. If you keep it tucked under a counter in a residential kitchen, make sure there's at least a couple of inches of breathing room, otherwise you'll notice a rise in temperature around the appliance, potentially affecting nearby appliances or food storage. Noise level tends to get a lot of attention with ice makers, and the Hoshizaki is no exception. The compressor cycles on and off as it builds ice, and while the unit isn't silent, the sound is comparable to a typical refrigerator compressor, a low hum that you'll hear if you're standing right next to it. In a bar or a commercial setting, that background hum is usually masked by music and conversation, but in a quiet home bar or a glass-enclosed kitchen, you might find it a bit intrusive during late-night cocktail prep. If you're hypersensitive to appliance noise, consider installing it in a pantry or behind a solid door. Now let's talk about the actual ice shape. The sphere cubes are a distinctive feature. Roughly the size of a golf ball, they melt slower than standard cubes, keeping drinks colder longer without diluting them quickly. This is a practical advantage for spritzers, whiskey on the rocks, or any drink where you want a slow melt. However, the larger size also means you need larger glasses or more space in your glassware rack to accommodate them. If you're used to thin crystal tumblers that only fit a few small cubes, you might need to adjust your glassware inventory or accept that a couple of spheres will sit on the rim. One of the strengths that often goes unnoticed is the stainless steel construction of the internal bin and the ice chute. This isn't just about aesthetics. Stainless steel resists corrosion from the constant flow of water and ice, which in turn means fewer cleaning cycles and a longer service life. For a commercial environment with heavy daily use, that durability adds up to tangible cost savings over time. Home users who don't want to wrestle with a plastic bin that warps or picks up odors will appreciate the easy-to-wipe surface as well. On the flip side, the machine's self-contained condenser does not have a built-in water filtration system. If your water source is hard or contains a lot of minerals, you might notice a buildup of scale inside the ice molds after a few weeks. The practical workaround is to either install an external water softener or perform a monthly cleaning with a mild descaling solution. It adds a small maintenance step, but it's manageable if you